to this tutorial of the Yamaha QL5 digital mixing console. The first thing we need to do is turn on the master volume. So to do this, press the on buttons for the A and B sections and turn the fader bars up to the 0 mark. When we have a wireless mic set up, it will appear in one of these 8 channels, marked SEN, which stands for Sennheiser microphone. When we have a mic wired in the studio, it will appear in one of these other 16 channels, 8 of which you don't see on the screen. Right now, we have someone hooked up to a Sennheiser microphone in channel 1. When we turn channel 1 on and turn the fader bar up to 0, we start seeing lights appear. These lights correspond to the decibel level of the person talking. There are also more precise measurements in the digital menu. You always want your talent to peak between -12 and -6 decibels. However, if your talent is much quieter or louder than this, you will need to adjust the gain. To do so, double tap on the gain knob in the digital menu. This brings up the gain/patch menu. To adjust your gain, you can use this knob that is labeled gain. This adjusts the analog gain. Make sure you adjust it so that your talent is peaking between -12 and -6 decibels. There are 2 different types of gain that you can use in this audio board. There is analog gain and digital gain. Because we use analog mics in the studio, we typically only use analog gain. But if you like, you can raise the digital gain instead, in which case you should lower the analog gain accordingly. Usually we keep the analog gain at +30 and the digital gain at 0 until we have listened to the talent. You should only adjust the gain before the show goes live. During the show, you shouldn't have to touch it at all. Rather, if your talent increases dynamics, just bring their fader down a touch, and if the talent gets too quiet, bring it up. When using packages through Dashboard, the audio will be located in the left 8 channels of the audio board. You'll notice that these are labeled BS _, the channel number, and then an L or an R. This is because the Dashboard packages come into the board as stereo, meaning that they use both a left and a right channel, rather than just a single channel. Thus, when adjusting the sound for the packages, you must use both channels that correspond to the single video channel. For example, the first 2 faders are the left and right channels of channel 1. If for some reason the audio is not even on the left and the right, you can raise or lower the gain on one side to match. If you need to play external audio, whether music to work to in the studio or royalty-free music to play during the show, just bring up the song you want to play on YouTube via the Mac computer to the left of the audio board and turn on mic 15. This is the digital menu for the Yamaha QL5 digital mixing console. When adjusting things in this digital menu, you will probably need to use the touch and turn button at some point. To do so, touch one of the knobs on the screen and a pink line will surround it. Then, by using the touch and turn knob, you can adjust this setting. Because you might be intimidated by how many buttons appear on this screen, I'm going to teach you how to create a new scene. The new scene will allow you to mess with all the settings in the audio board without screwing up the original settings. To do this, tap on the lower right corner of the screen where it says Scene. Then use the touch and turn button to navigate to a blank spot and tap on the Store button. In this menu, you can change the name of your new scene and press Store again. When you are finished, press the Scene button again to go back to the main menu. Now, if you want to go back to the original settings, you can go back into the scene and load Test 1 scene. But because you probably want to play with some of the settings to figure out what they do first, don't do this until you are done at the end of the day. Apart from gain, there is really only one other setting you will probably need to use in this board, and that is the EQ. Right now, you can tell that the EQ is off because the on button is not highlighted. Tap it to turn it on, and double tap the EQ section to bring up the full EQ menu. Every time you select a new microphone, you should reset your EQ to the original settings, and to do this, just press the button labeled Flat. A menu will pop up asking you if you'd like to reset the EQ gains, and you should tap OK. Now you can adjust the EQ if needed. One reason you might need to change the EQ is if you can hear any feedback coming from the microphone. To fix this, go to the low-mid section of the EQ and first bring down the gain. But when we did this, it took down the low-middle section of the entire microphone. So go to the Q knob and make it as narrow as possible. Depending on the range of feedback, you wish to eliminate, you may need to adjust this a little wider. But now, you want to adjust the frequency of the low middle section until you find exactly what frequency the feedback is coming from. When you have finished, your talent's voice may sound a little funky, and that is because the gain is now much too low. Just raise it back up until the talent sounds fine and the feedback is as quiet as possible. Find a happy medium. The next important thing in the EQ menu is the HPF, which stands for the high pass filter. You should always use this for every show because it just eliminates unwanted sounds such as footsteps or construction sounds that may come from around the studio. For men, you typically want the high pass filter at 80, but depending on the pitch of your talent's voice, you might need to lower it even more. For women, the high pass filter is usually safe around 100, but just like with men, you might need to adjust it. At the end of the day, make sure you have gone back into the Test 1C and make sure that all the channels are off and lower the fader bars all the way down. This is the Ross Carbonite Switcher. The green row here is where you will put cameras and videos into your live television show. The bottom row, labeled Preset, puts your videos and cameras into Preview, ready to cut to Program. The second row is Program. It shows which videos or cameras are live. The top row is the Key/Auxiliary/Custom Control row, and this allows you to key in graphics such as lower thirds. If you want to cut to a PSA, it will appear in one of the Play Number channels. I am putting Play 4 into Preview. When I press Cut, the preset light switches from the program light, and now Play 4 is in Program. When you press Cut again, whatever is in Preview will go to Program and Play 4 will go back to Preset. Another way that you can cut to the camera or video is by pressing the button on the Program row. Now I need to put a lower third on top of my camera, and to do that, I must first select CG Fill on the Key Control row. And on the right side of the board, there is a button labeled Key 1. You can press the Cut button or Auto button on the sides of the Key 1. The Auto transition fades in the graphic, and Cut cuts the graphic. Sometimes we want our graphics to come in on the same cut as the camera, and it's actually fairly simple to do this. To the left of the fader bar, click the background and Key 1 buttons at the same time so that they both light up. And then press Cut. This cuts in your new camera and the graphic at the same time. To remove the graphic and go to a different camera, keep background and Key 1 highlighted, and then press Cut again. Now, both of them are gone, but unless you want to bring your graphic back up the next time you cut, you must remember to select just background again. A very important thing when trying to play videos through Dashboard is that you must have roll clip selected. If you don't, then the video won't automatically play. The top rows of the board in blue is the section of which you will build all of your graphics. These include, but are not limited to, chroma key, 2 boxes, and picture-in-pictures. For every effect, you should remember that the top row corresponds to what is going to be changed. For picture-in-pictures and 2 boxes, the top row corresponds to the image of which you will be manipulating the size of. The second row is what the picture will appear on top of. Then press DVE, which stands for Digital Video Effects, and make sure Key 1 is lit. And then go up to the menu and adjust the size, the X position, and the Y position. To do this, use the knobs underneath each action until your picture-in-picture looks like you want it to. When you press the next button, a few more menu items show up. One of them is Border, which adds a border to your picture. And Soft, which makes the border soft and feathery. Then, when you press Next again, you can change the color of the border. To do this, find the color that you want and then press the button. When you press Next again, it brings up a B-Hue, B-Sat, and B-Lume. These manipulate the hue, saturation, and illumination of the color of the border. Press Next again, and you have 2 options, horizontal crop and vertical crop. We often use horizontal crop when creating a 2-box with a single person in one of the boxes, but the vertical crop does not get used often. You can also freeze the image and put a mask on top of the image, but these are options you can explore on your own. Pressing Next again takes you back to the beginning. If you begin editing somewhere else on the board, the menu will disappear and the DVE button will turn white. To get back to your menu, just press the DVE button again and it will turn green. To create a 2 box, select Key to Select, and then on the top blue row, select your other picture-in-picture. Select DVE, and this time make sure that Key 2 is lit. Then, try to match the size and Y position to your first picture, and make sure that the X position is on the exact opposite end of the screen. You might need to readjust your X position if you have a horizontal crop on one of your images. Then, ensure that your borders are the same size, softness, and color. Now we are going to go over chroma key. For those who don't know, chroma key removes a color from an image and replaces it with something else. Once again, the top blue row is what we are changing. So in this case, which image has the color that we want to remove? Camera 3 is on the green screen, so I will select that one. On the second row, select which image you want to replace the color with. Then, press Chroma key, located right next to the DVE button, and make sure Key 1 is lit. Now, go into your menu and move the left knob until it says Basic, the middle knob until it says Green, and then press the knob on the right to initialize. If you wanted to key out the red on the phone instead of the green, you can do that by finding the color red instead of green, and then pressing Initialize again. Much like when creating digital video effects, if you begin editing somewhere else on the board, the Chroma key menu will disappear. Just press Chroma key again to bring the menu back up. When you are done creating an effect, you should store it. To do this, hold the MU1 Store button and press any of the numbers 0 through 9. When you need to recall an effect, hold the MU1 Recall button right next to the Store button, and then press the number where you saved the effect. Make sure you don't save different effects to the same number because this will erase the first saved effect. Another way that you can move from camera to camera is through transitions. Pressing the Auto Transition button will automatically transition to the camera, kind of like Cut, but using the Dissolve, Wipe, or Digital Video Effect transitions instead. There is also a Media button, which I believe you can upload your own transitions to, but I'm not totally sure how to do that. When you select the Dissolve transition, the menu looks like this. On the left knob, you can change the frame rate at which your dissolve transits. In broadcast, 30 frames is 1 second. When you press Next in this menu, you can change the frame rate of each of your key auto lower thirds. In the Wipe menu, you can also manipulate the frame rate, and the new menu option is Direction. For a side wipe, forward is left to right and reverse is right to left. When you press Next, the left knob allows you to select which type of wipe you wish to use. And you can't manipulate the other two knobs. This next menu should look very familiar. You can add a border to your wipe. And when you press Next again, you can change the color of the border. And in the menu after that, you can change the hue, saturation, and illumination of the color of the border on your wipe. Now look at the DVE Transitions menu. Here you can once again change the frame rate and the direction, but with DVE Transitions, there is more to the direction than just left or right or up or down. Press Next again to select which effect to use. One of my favorites is the circle transition. If you need an image to drop into frame, you can use the 1,000 pound transition. If you don't want to deal with finding the right frame rate for you, you can always use the fader bar to transition instead. When we are white balancing, the video engineer may ask you to split two cameras, and to do this, just select Wipe, move the fader bar halfway, and then this allows them to see the difference in color of the two cameras. At the end of the day, don't forget to reset the board. To do this, hold down the menu button and select Reset All. Hello, and welcome to this tutorial of Dashboard by Ross Video. Your first step is to go find the Dashboard application, double-click on it to open it. If your screen doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. but if it looks completely different, please go to the Layouts tab and select BVS Layout 1. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, I don't need channels 2, 3, and 4, so I am going to close each of those. The first thing you need to do is find your media files. They're under this Directory tab here. And you'll find a file called Media. If you loaded them in, they should show up in one of these folders. For now, I'm just going to make a 2-minute PSA break. So I am selecting the PSA file. I click this arrow to see what's inside. As you can tell, there are a lot of PSAs. Each of them are labeled PSA, and then they have a number, what company the PSA is from, and either 30S or 60S, meaning 30 seconds or 60 seconds. For this exercise, I'm going to want to do 2 30-second PSAs and 1 60-second PSA. In order to do so, go down into your playlist client, select File, New Editor, and that'll bring up your playlist editor. Click this arrow to bring the whole thing up. So, I will drag in my first 30-second PSA, and a new playlist window pops up. Make sure you name your playlist with something recognizable, such as Studio Video. Alright, now I will go find a 60-second PSA and another 30-second PSA. However, I wanted the 60-second PSA in between the two 30-second PSAs. In order to do so, you can just simply drag your 60-second PSA in between the two 30s. Now we have a 30-second, 60-second, and a 30-second. You'll notice that each of these videos has a lot of information. This first bit here is the name of the video. And then the second bit, duration, is how long the video is by hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. If you want to change at what point the video starts and at what point the video ends, you can double click and select it to start at, say, 3 seconds in. Or you can select it to be out. Say if you want it to only want the first 15 seconds of the video, you can change it to 15. This drop-down menu here gives you all of the different options for transitions. The X-Fade, V-Fade, and Play Next all allow the next video in the playlist to play automatically. X-Fade crossfades into that video. V-Fade fades the video to black and then fades in the next video. Play Next just simply plays it next. So, for PSAs, because we want them all to flow into each other with no fades, we'll select Play Next. But make sure, if you want to save these changes, you press the Enter button. Otherwise, if you just move the scroll button, everything goes back to default. So for this last PSA, we don't want it to play into the next video. Therefore, there are these other 3 options. V-Fade with pause fades it to black and then pauses it. The pause option just simply pauses it on the final frame, and the hold Q pause does the exact same thing as pause. Because we don't want to freeze it on the final frame, because that would be kind of ugly, we're going to do V-Fade with pause for this video, which also allows us to change how many frames the fade lasts. 10 seconds is a third of, or 10 frames is a third of a second. 60 frames is 2 seconds. Now that you have your playlist created, we can load it into a channel. Because I only have channel 1 up, let's put it into channel 1. Now that you're back and you can see all of your channels, you can exit your playlist editor and go to File, Load Edit Playlist. In this drop-down menu, you select the playlist you are wanting to load it into, and then you can select you want it to load into channel 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can load it into a new editor and edit it some more. Now that it's loaded, we have an image up in our channel 1 output, and we have our playlist ready to go. The first one is red because it is the one that will play live next. And this one is green because it is on standby. This one is white, and you can edit it, unlike the other two. So you'll see that there are some buttons up in channel 1. This first one is a skip button with a little play button attached to it. It allows you to skip to the next PSA and immediately play it. This next button allows you to skip to the next video and have it pause and not play. This final one is just an eject button. And then you'll also notice we have some more buttons on the channel window. This first one allows us to cue the playlist from the very beginning. This play button, of course, plays the video. You'll notice that this video doesn't look like it's playing, but you have a time up here counting down how many seconds are left of this PSA, and you have some audio levels. Therefore, you know that it is playing. You can also look up at the monitor, where under play 1, the video should be playing. The rest of these buttons just allow you to skip part of the way through the video, or this one allows you to skip through it frame by frame. This button allows you to loop the playlist. Say if you started playing the last video, it will immediately play the first video when you skip play next. Before your show, please make sure you tell your technical director which channels each video is in, and also correspond with the audio engineer to make sure that the audio of each video is decent. At the end of the day, eject all of your playlists by pressing the eject button on every single channel. You want to also delete your playlists, and to do so, go up to this filter tab, select playlists. All of the playlists that have been made recently will show up in here. Select them all, and press delete. That is all you should need to know for the Intro to Studio class. But if you want to learn more about Dashboard and get more in-depth to what this program can really do, Ross Video offers a lot of really helpful tutorials. Now we are going to touch on the Expressions Graphics Studio. First things first, go find the Expression SCE icon on the desktop. It will automatically open up a blank canvas. So, if you want to use the Newswatch template, go up to File, then Open Recent, and select the one called Newswatch. And you probably don't want to save changes to this first file. In this template, there is already a Newswatch lower third, and you can change the names by double-clicking on them. To create a new scene, press on the little icon that looks like a little new slide button from your PowerPoint softwares. First, minimize your window, then find the graphic you wish to use, and just grab it and drag it onto the blank canvas. Now we need to add text to this lower third. To do so, go to the upper right part of the screen where it says Base Objects. The icon may be closed, in which case you can just press the little plus mark to open it up and find the text option. Click it, and a new text box will appear on the left side of the canvas. In here, you can type whatever you want, preferably a name. If you try to move the text around at this point, you probably can't. If you want to manipulate your text box at all, right-click it and go down to Tools. The Select tool allows you to select the text and retype anything you want. The Move tool allows you to move the text box around the screen. The Rotate tool allows you to rotate the text box on the Z-axis vertically or horizontally. The Scale tool allows you to change the size of the text. Up makes the text taller, left makes it wider, and diagonally down makes it smaller. The final tool is Pivot, which changes the pivot point of the text box. If we were to change the pivot point and then go back to Rotate, the rotation of your text is now much wider. When you want to change the text inside of the text box rather than the text box itself, click on it and the Job Inspector will appear at the bottom of the page. Under Face, you can change the font. Newswatch likes to use Arial font. You can change the font size. You can make it bold, bold and italic, italic, and black, which just looks like an extra bold. You can also change the width of the text, the slant of the text, and quite a few other things, including the space vertically and horizontally. If you want to change the color of the text, click on the Edit Materials box and a new box will appear. In here, just select the color that you want and then press OK. And there are a few checkboxes above the Edit Materials button. They allow you to add a border to your text, or stroke, or neon, which gives the text a glow. And there is also a shadow option. You can also make the text 3D by selecting the 3D option above the checkboxes. While we have been building our graphics, we have been in Layout View, and you can tell both by we can see the canvas and because here is the tab that says Layout is selected. When your graphics are finished, you will want to send them to the sequencer, which is a much simpler way to key in your graphics. To send a graphic to the sequencer, right-click your first graphic and click on To Sequencer. Now, when you go to the sequencer page, the graphic should appear there. When you double-click on it in the sequencer, the graphic comes up into CG Fill. If you want to learn more about the Expression Graphics software, Ross provides tons of tutorials from the basics to advanced graphics building. I promise that taking the time to learn this stuff will be very beneficial to your career in the future.
In this tutorial, you get to learn how to white balance, expose your image correctly, and color correct, all in the studio. When the cameras are ready, they should be zoomed all the way into the same part of the whiteboard and focused all the way out. Then you can come in here and find this little tab that sits on the bottom. It says black, on the top it says white, and in the middle it says auto. Make sure you flick it down to black for each camera. Once the little dot next to black is no longer red, that means it's done black balancing, and then you can push it up for white balance. Right now they are blinking because there is an error. The error is that we don't actually have a whiteboard on our cameras at the moment. When you're doing this, they shouldn't blink, but if they do, just white balance again. Now you want to look at your waveform. If your waveform is spread out a bunch, you're going to need to adjust your colors so that they make a very thin line. You have red color and white, blue color and white, red color and black, and blue color and black. Adjust them until your white line is as thin as possible. Make sure you do this with every camera. After you've white balanced via the waveform, you can ask your technical director to split cameras 1 and 2 to make sure that the two colors are the same. If one of them looks more red than the other, make sure to take a little bit of the red out of the one that looks too red. Or if it looks too blue, just take a little bit of blue out. Or you can add a little bit of red instead of taking away blue, and vice versa. Next, once the cameras have moved away from the whiteboard and they are in focus with the subject, you're going to want to adjust your light waves. That's where the master black and the iris come in. For the master black, you just make sure that the bottom line of your waveform is touching the 0 line. And with the iris, you make sure that the most bright part of your image does not go above 100. As the cameras move, say from one section of the studio to the other, you're going to have to readjust.
When trying to view your waveforms, make sure the WFM1B button is selected, and then you can go through and select camera 1, 2, 3 to view each of their waveforms. The rest of these buttons are important not to touch, but if you see that you aren't recording the right thing, the way to fix that is by pressing on this FS1 button. When you press on the FS1 button, the only other button that should be lit up is the one in the upper far right corner. Then, just make sure that you press the waveform button again.
Alright, what I'm about to tell you is the most important job of the video engineer. It's actually the most important job in the studio. And it's just pressing this button right here. This little red button is the record button. It records the show and it sends out the signal to the broadcast network. So please, don't forget to press the record button. And at the end of the show, you press the stop button to stop recording.
Finally, we are out of the control room and into the studio. Out here we have a grid full of different kinds of lights. There are Psychs, 4Ks, 2Ks, scoops, spotlights, and Flowtechs. We also have floor lights. Here, Ben is securing a light to the C-stand. He tightens down the wing nut to make sure that the light is secure. Then, he takes the cable off and plugs it in. Next, he adds a sandbag to the tallest leg of the C-stand. To turn on the lighting board, which allows us to patch the lights in the grid, first flick the switch on the surge protector the board is plugged into. Then, when the word setup appears, press the F3 button. Then, press the F3 button to confirm that we are patching the lights. And then, press the F3 a third time to confirm again. To patch in a light, find the number the light is plugged into, then type it in. Press the @ symbol, type the fader number you want to add the light to, and then press the FX page button to execute the action. Before you raise the fader bar, make sure to yell,
"Heating light!"
And also make sure that the people in the studio heard you, and they should say,
"Thanks!"
Now you are all clear to heat the light. If you miss this step, you could end up temporarily blinding one of your classmates, and if they are carrying something large and heavy, this could become disastrous. To turn off all the lights at the end of the day, press the F3 button to unpatch, then the F2 button to confirm yes. When moving cameras, you generally want someone moving the camera and another person holding and unwrapping the cord as they move. But if you are all alone, you can sling the cord over your shoulder to be sure that you don't accidentally yank any of the cords out of the camera. Also, make sure that you move the camera via the steering wheel and not the handles. Your left hand will adjust the focus on the camera, and your right hand will adjust the zoom. If your viewfinder is pointed up too high or too low, you can loosen it by the knob on the right-hand side. And when focusing on a subject, be sure to zoom all the way into their eyes, then focus and zoom back out. Zooming all the way in ensures that the talent is in sharp focus. On the left side of the camera, there is a pan lock on the bottom, a tilt lock on the top, and a knob with a yellow band around it that can put more or less resistance on the tilt. 9 has the most resistance, whereas 0 has the least. On the right side of the camera, there is a similar knob that affects the resistance of the pan function. Underneath the camera, there is a lock, and when unlocked, allows you to move the camera up or down. Never, under any circumstances, do this by yourself. Always have someone else help you raise and lower the camera, otherwise you may risk the camera falling and breaking. If you are unsure about how a camera looks, there is an intercom switch on the camera. Flick it up to talk to anyone wearing a headset.
Hey, how's the framing on camera 1 looking?
Tilt up a bit, please.
How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Cool, no problem.
When putting the camera away, put the cord on the hose hangers and always wrap your cords over, under.